There's really nothing quite like watching a multi-million-dollar state-of-the-art sports car being pushed to its absolute limit on a track.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, the engine roars, the aerodynamics look like completely flawless, and it maneuvers with this terrifying grace. But then, you look a little closer as it takes a sharp corner, and you notice something alarming.
Right, the wear and tear.
Exactly. The brakes are actually smoking. Like, it is moving at 200 miles an hour, looking totally unbeatable to the crowd in the stands, but one slight miscalculation by the driver or, one bump in the road, and the whole beautifully engineered machine could just shatter into a million pieces.
Yeah, that's a great image.
It is the absolute definition of a high-speed vulnerability. The danger isn't an accident. It is baked right into the design.
Which is, that's often the paradox of elite tactical systems. The very mechanisms that make a team dominant going forward they're the exact same mechanisms that leave them exposed at the back.
Right.
It's a structural trade-off.
And that structural trade-off is the exact subject of today's deep dive. But before we unpack today's sources, we want to invite you to subscribe to the channel, to follow all our new content, and, encourage us to provide more.
Yeah, definitely.
We're hoping to reach 1 million subscribers, and a massive thank you to our current subscribers. You are the foundation of our success and continuity. We also invite you to join our predictions contest.
Oh, this is a good one.
It really is. The person with the highest percentage of correct predictions will be awarded half of the channel's monthly profits. Help us spread the word to, speed up the prize distribution. And we want to firmly emphasize here, we are not a betting platform.
No.
The prize money comes directly from the channel's profits, not from the contestants' money.
Getting involved with the predictions is going to be especially fascinating with this specific group we are looking at today because, the tactical landscape is incredibly volatile.
It really is. So today, our mission is to analyze a massive stack of sources, including tactical previews, deep sports betting analysis, and official FIFA player profiles. We're breaking down the highly anticipated 2026 FIFA World Cup Group K.
That's Portugal, Colombia, DR Congo, and Uzbekistan.
Right. And the big question we have for you today is this. In a group that looks incredibly top-heavy on paper, where do the true tactical vulnerabilities lie? And where's the smart money actually going? Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the heavy favorites. Portugal.
Well, the betting markets currently have Portugal as a massive -185 favorite to win the group.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, in terms of probability, the market is essentially saying they have about a 65% chance to take the top spot. They are coming into this tournament incredibly hot as the 2024 to 2025 UEFA Nations League champions.
And this is where that high-end sports car analogy really fits perfectly, I think. Looking at the tactical breakdowns, Roberto Martinez has, completely overhauled this team.
Oh, totally.
Portugal used to be known for a slightly more rigid, pragmatic, counterattacking style. Now, they are a luxury possession machine. I mean, they completely dominate the ball, routinely holding 60 to 65% possession. They utilize this incredibly fluid 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1 formation.
Yeah, Martinez has built this new philosophy entirely around establishing a midfield monopoly. When you review the player profiles in our sources, the focal point is the elite control provided by their central trio.
Right. Bruno Fernandes, Vitinha, and Bernardo Silva.
Exactly. They don't just hold the ball to waste time. They dictate the entire spatial geography of the pitch. Vitinha, for instance, offers this elite press resistance.
Yeah.
He acts as a pivot point, absorbing pressure from opposing midfielders and quickly distributing the ball. And this specific mechanism allows Bruno Fernandes to push much higher up the pitch.
So he doesn't have to drop deep.
Right. He operates as a high-risk, high-reward playmaker in the final third without having to worry about build-up duties. They systematically starve the opponent of the ball.
Okay, but I am looking at that midfield setup, and I have to push back a little bit on how this actually works in practice. We are talking about a fluid, front-footed, high-intensity youth movement in the middle of the pitch.
Yeah.
How does a 41-year-old, Cristiano Ronaldo fit into that mix without completely disrupting the defensive shape? Because mechanically speaking, you can't execute a high-intensity collective press if your central striker isn't initiating the trigger.
That is, the sources highlight this exact tension, actually. It is the ultimate tactical conundrum for Martinez.
Right.
Structurally, Ronaldo absolutely alters their collective pressing mechanics.
Right. He just doesn't have the legs for it anyway.
He does not have the stamina to relentlessly chase down center backs for 90 minutes. However, Martinez is making a very calculated trade-off. You have to look at the other side of the ledger. Ronaldo has a staggering 143 international goals.
Jeez, that's incredible.
It's 26 clear of Lionel Messi. You simply cannot teach or replicate that level of unmatched high-stakes experience.
So it's less about his work rate off the ball and more about the gravity he brings to the penalty box in crucial group stage moments.
Exactly. Martinez accepts a slight compromise in how Portugal defends from the front, because Ronaldo gives them an undeniable psychological edge and a clinical presence.
Right.
When that midfield monopoly finally cracks a stubborn low-block defense, Ronaldo only needs a fraction of an inch of space to finish a sequence. In a tense 0-0 game in the World Cup, that singular finishing ability often outweighs the benefits of a marginally better presence structure.
But that trade-off comes with significant risks further down the pitch.
Yeah.
I mean, I found a massive red flag in the statistical sources. In just 6 European qualifiers, Portugal conceded 7 goals.
Yeah, that's a lot.
For a team that dominates possession that heavily, giving up more than a goal a game against non-elite opposition is alarming. It feels like those smoking brakes I mentioned earlier.
The tactical analysis explains exactly the mechanics behind this vulnerability, too.
Mm-hmm.
Portugal relies heavily on incredibly aggressive attacking fullbacks.
Like João Cancelo and Nuno Mendes.
Exactly. In Martinez's system, when Portugal has the ball, these fullbacks push incredibly high up the pitch to create wide numerical overloads. They essentially act as wingers to support that midfield monopoly.
Right.
But doing so means they evacuate their defensive positions, leaving massive voids of empty space behind them on the flanks.
So if the initial counterpress fails when they lose the ball, the opponent is just staring at acres of empty green grass on the wings.
You got it.
Mm.
Their high defensive line becomes a severe liability in rapid transition moments.
Wow.
The moment an opponent bypasses that first wave of Portugal's press, Portugal's center backs, usually Rúben Dias and Gonçalo Inácio, are suddenly exposed in isolation. You have to scramble out wide to cover the empty channels.
Which pulls them out of position.
Yes. This stretches the defense horizontally and opens up massive gaps directly in front of their own goal.
If Portugal's biggest vulnerability is that massive vacuum of space behind their fullbacks, I mean, that has to be exactly what the opposing managers are drooling over when they drop their game plans.
Well, without a doubt.
Let's look at how the two group underdogs, Uzbekistan and DR Congo, are uniquely engineered to exploit these exact weaknesses. Starting with Uzbekistan, they are World Cup debutantes. It's a fantastic story. They are led by the 2006 Ballon d'Or winner, Fabio Cannavaro.
Yeah, Cannavaro has organized a very pragmatic, disciplined 3-4-2-1 formation that is heavily influenced by traditional Italian defensive principles.
Like Catenaccio.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
He has publicly stated he doesn't believe in having his team press exhaustingly for 90 minutes against superior opposition. Instead, he trains his squad to operate in a compact mid-block.
Okay.
This block is anchored by a 22-year-old center back who plays for Manchester City, Abdulkadir Kusanov.
So instead of trying to fight Portugal for the steering wheel, they are perfectly content to let Portugal have their 65% possession.
They actively welcome it. The entire Uzbek system is designed mechanically to absorb the attacking weight of top-heavy teams. They sit deep, compress the central areas, and wait for Portugal's fullbacks to push too high.
And then they strike.
Exactly. The moment Portugal turns the ball over, Uzbekistan doesn't try to build slowly. They launch immediate vertical counterattacks directly into those empty wide spaces.
Funneling the ball to their captain, right?
Yep. All-time leading scorer, Eldor Shomurodov. They are trying to outstrike Portugal in the few transition moments they get.
That makes sense for a structured underdog. But DR Congo presents a totally different kind of threat. I mean, they're back in the tournament after a 52-year wait. Their last appearance was in 1974 as Zaire.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
And from the player profiles in our sources, their greatest weapon against a team like Portugal isn't just structure, it's pure blistering speed.
DR Congo's coach, Sebastian de Saber, relies on a compact 4-4-2 or 4-5-1 formation that, much like Uzbekistan, aims to congest the middle of the pitch.
Okay.
But the major difference is their explosive pace on the break. They boast Premier League and La Liga quality attackers.
Right. Guys like Newcastle's Yohan Wissa and Real Betis's Cedric Bakambu. I was reading about how they operate, and it sounds less like a traditional counterattack and more like a slingshot.
That's a good way to put it.
Like the deeper they get pulled into their own half while defending, the faster and harder they snap back into the empty space Cancelo and Mendes leave behind.
The sources detail how this specific dynamic deeply confuses and stretches Portugal's center backs. When Diaz and Inacio are dragged out wide to cover a sprinting Wissa, they are forced into uncomfortable one-on-one foot races in wide channels.
Areas where center backs traditionally struggle.
Exactly. Wissa's directness is designed to exploit the lack of recovery speed in Portugal's defensive transitions. In a pure sprint down the touchline, DR Congo has the athletic tools to make elite European defenders look very vulnerable.
Before we get into the real heavyweight clash of this group and see how all this chaos might unfold, we want to remind you to subscribe to the channel to follow all our new content as we aim for 1 million subscribers.
Don't forget to subscribe.
And thank you to our current subscribers. You are the foundation of our success. Don't forget to join our predictions contest to win half the channel's monthly profits. Help us grow to speed up the prizes. Remember, we are not a betting platform. This is funded entirely by channel profits.
Predicting the outcome of this specific group is going to require understanding how these contrasting styles collide.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because as fascinating as the underdogs are, the marquee matchup of Group K is Portugal versus Colombia.
Oh, definitely.
Colombia is riding the incredible momentum of a 28-game unbeaten run under their manager, Nestor Lorenzo. We just spent a lot of time on Roberto Martinez's possession-heavy attacking philosophy. How does that directly compare with Colombia's organized defensive tactic?
It is a phenomenal stylistic clash. While Martinez wants to dictate play with the ball using an intricate midfield, Lorenzo has built an incredibly physical South American wall out of possession.
A wall.
Yeah, he relies heavily on towering center backs like Davinson Sanchez and John Lucumi to provide absolute aerial authority and physical intimidation.
Wow.
Lorenzo implements a very specific wide trap mid-block. Instead of pressing the center backs directly, Colombia waits for the ball to be played out to the wings, and then they aggressively trap the opposing fullbacks against the sideline.
I am looking at these stats for Colombia, though, and I have to ask, 18 goals conceded in CONMEBOL qualifying. If they have this physical South American wall with guys like Sanchez, how are they leaking a goal a game?
It's a fair question.
Are they just mathematically flawed on set pieces or something?
The vulnerability actually stems directly from that wide trap mechanism we just talked about.
Really? How so?
Well, because Lorenzo's system relies on aggressively shifting the entire midfield over to trap the fullbacks near the touchlines, their defensive block becomes heavily tilted to one side.
Oh, I see.
If an opponent manages to escape the trap and recycles the ball quickly back to the center of the pitch, Colombia's center backs are suddenly out of position, having been dragged over to support the wide press.
Leaving the middle open.
Exactly. This scrambling recovery leaves them totally exposed to deep crosses and late runs into the box, which is exactly why they give up so many free headers.
And Portugal's Bruno Fernandes is arguably one of the best in the world at delivering those exact deep crosses. But Colombia has an X factor to counter Portugal's attack, and his name is Luis Díaz.
Oh, yeah. He's incredible.
The Bayern Munich winger is in phenomenal form. I loved this quote from the sources from Vincent Company describing Diaz. He said, Diaz possesses a chaotic creativity. Like, he doesn't overthink, he just goes with his instincts and thrives on the chaos in the final third.
That chaotic creativity is the ultimate kryptonite for a high Portuguese defensive line. Diaz's blistering speed and elite one-on-one dribbling ability on the left flank will uniquely affect Portugal's defense in their final group match on June 27th in Miami.
Because of how high Portugal pushes up.
Yes. Because Cancelo pushes so high up the right side for Portugal, Diaz is going to be operating in massive pockets of space on the counter.
The structural load that places on Portugal's defense is immense. I mean, they are forced into a terrible mathematical choice.
Diaz's ability demands a double team. If Portugal leaves a single center back isolated one-on-one with Diaz in a transition moment, Diaz will win that battle 9 times out of 10.
Wow.
But the moment Portugal commits a second defender to stop Diaz out wide, they evacuate the center of the penalty area.
Right.
This leaves massive space centrally for players like Aston Villa's Jhon Durán or the veteran playmaker James Rodríguez to ghost in and exploit the gaps. Diaz doesn't even need to score to destroy Portugal's defensive structure. His sheer gravitational pull warps their entire defensive shape.
Knowing that this massive tactical clash between Portugal and Colombia culminates on June 27th in Miami, what does this mean for you, the listener, who might be looking for an edge in predictions or, evaluating the betting lines? Because the way the schedule falls, it feels like it changes the entire dynamic of how these teams will approach that game.
The schedule completely alters the risk profile. As we noted, the market prices Colombia at plus 223 to win the group, which implies about a 30% probability.
Okay.
But the sports betting analysis provided in our sources gives direct tips on why betting Colombia to top the group over Portugal is actually the smartest value play on the board.
Because the market is overvaluing Portugal's reputation and undervaluing Colombia's tactical setup and schedule. Like, Colombia gets to play the underdogs first.
Exactly. Colombia faces Uzbekistan and DR Congo in their first two matches.
Yes.
This allows them the opportunity to bank points and build goal difference before the finale in Miami.
That's a huge advantage.
It is. Portugal, on the other hand, faces a very tricky physical opener against a highly motivated DR Congo team that is built to exploit their weaknesses. If Colombia arrives at that June 27th match sitting on 6 points, they can treat that final game as a winner-takes-top spot scenario where a draw might even be enough for them.
And because we've established that Portugal is structurally leaky in transition, Colombia doesn't have to force the issue. They can sit in that organized physical defensive block, absorb Portugal's possession, and hit them with Diaz on the counterattack.
Which is precisely why the analysts in the sources also highly recommend the over 2.5 goals bet for that specific Colombia-Portugal match.
Oh, really? Even with Colombia's defense?
Yeah. When you evaluate the mechanisms, you have two teams with incredible attacking firepower. Ronaldo, Fernandes, Leão on one side, Diaz, Durán, James on the other.
It's a lot of talent.
Combined with known systemic defensive lapses in transition and on deep crosses. It is a recipe for a high-scoring shootout.
Let's play out a scenario here. What happens if they finish that Miami shootout in a draw and they finish the group tied on points? How does FIFA mathematically separate them to decide who wins the group?
Well, the standard tiebreakers apply first. The standings go to overall group goal difference, then total goals scored in all group matches, and then the head-to-head result between the tied teams.
Okay, that is the standard formula we see in every tournament. Nothing crazy there.
Right. But this raises an important question. What if the margins are so tight that they are still tied after all of that? Say they both beat the underdogs by the exact same scores and then draw 2-2 with each other in Miami.
That would be incredible. What happens then? Is it just like a random draw? A coin flip?
The sources outline the fascinating fair play point system. This system could literally be the ultimate crucial criterion for the Group K standings, and it's based entirely on disciplinary records.
So it comes down to which team maintained better composure. How does the math actually work on that?
Okay, so a team loses 1 point for every yellow card received. They lose 3 points for an indirect red card, meaning a player gets a second yellow in the same match.
Ouch.
A direct red card costs 4 points, and a yellow card followed by a direct red card later in the game costs 5 points.
That is wild when you think about the tactical context we just discussed. In a group with so much attacking flair and transition speed, defenders are going to be forced into desperate last-ditch situations.
Oh, absolutely.
Imagine a Portuguese center back having to drag down João Neves on a breakaway, or a Colombian midfielder committing a cynical foul to stop Bruno Fernandes. A single reckless tackle in the 89th minute against Uzbekistan could literally cost a team a point in the fair play standings.
Yeah, deciding who wins the group and gets a more favorable draw in the knockout rounds.
It adds an invisible layer of immense pressure to every single defensive action and foul committed throughout the entire group stage.
It really does. It changes how you have to play.
Let's recap this journey we've been on. We started by looking at Portugal's luxury possession machine, a team designed to monopolize the midfield while balancing the unmatched, vital experience of Cristiano Ronaldo up top.
Right.
But their incredibly aggressive fullbacks leave massive voids on the wings, vulnerabilities that line up perfectly with the disciplined, counterattacking strikes of Cannavaro's Uzbekistan and the explosive slingshot speed of DR Congo.
And all of these tactical threads culminate in the ultimate stylistic showdown against Colombia.
Yeah.
You have Roberto Martinez's fluid attacking philosophy crashing head-on into Néstor Lorenzo's physical, wide-trapping defense.
Yeah.
And at the center of it all, Luis Díaz's chaotic pace serves as the ultimate wild card, structurally designed to pull a leaky Portuguese highline apart.
So what does this all mean? It means that while the betting markets heavily favor Portugal on paper, an understanding of the specific tactical mechanism suggests a highly volatile group, the vulnerabilities of the favorites line up almost too perfectly with the opponent's strengths, meaning absolutely nothing is guaranteed.
Definitely not.
Before we go, we invite you one last time to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a thing. We are hoping for 1 million subscribers, and we thank our current subscribers for being the foundation of our success and continuity.
Thanks, everyone.
Be sure to join our predictions contest, where the most accurate predictor wins half the channel's monthly profits. Help us spread the word. And again, we are not a betting platform. The prize money comes from our channel profits, not from you.
I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over until next time, building directly on those fair play rules we just explored.
Oh, okay.
With the new 48-team format at this World Cup, the 8 best third-place teams will also advance to the round of 32. The math to advance might be incredibly tight across all the groups. Could this incredibly punitive fair play point system encourage teams in the final group matches to stop attempting tackles altogether?
Wait, are you saying teams might just, stop playing defense?
If you look at the incentives, it's possible. If a team like DR Congo or Uzbekistan is sitting on 3 points in their final match and they know their overall goal difference is tied with a third-place team in another group, their ticket to the knockout stage might come down to simply having fewer yellow cards.
Wow.
Could we see bizarre, non-combative matches in the final 20 minutes where teams purposefully refuse to press or engage physically, essentially shadowing each other, just to protect their disciplinary record and sneak into the round of 32?
That is a fascinating and kind of hilarious tactical image. Just 22 players terrified to make physical contact on the biggest stage in the world.
It could happen.
We started this deep dive talking about a high-end sports car flying down the track looking totally unbeatable until you notice the smoking brakes. It turns out the thing that might finally cause that multi-million-dollar machine to shatter isn't a blown engine or a strategic failure. It might just be a yellow card for a sloppy tackle in the middle of the pitch. Something to mull over until next time.